My name is Ed Chung. I'm the Vice President for Criminal Justice Reform at the Center for American Progress. I want to welcome all of you all here to the Smart on Crime Innovations Conference here at John Jay College. Yeah, please. We want to welcome you. We want to welcome those who are joining us via live stream. It's really exciting for me to see all of you here, colleagues, friends, people that have been working for a more comprehensive, a fairer, a more just criminal justice system, and to gather all here today for the next 2 days to talk about what Smart on Crime really means. You know, several months ago when we were putting the idea of this conference together, I'm sure many of us in this room had the same conversations that I was having with my friends and colleagues. You know, in terms of the political and social environment, we were thinking, what is going to be the future of criminal justice reform? What is going to be the future of public safety efforts? And the recent progress that had been made over the last several years, what is going to be the sustainability of that going forward? And frankly, we're concerned about the resurgence of some rhetoric and policies that put primary emphasis on crime and on addressing crime through arrests and incarceration, because that was something that we, as criminal justice reformers, as part of the criminal justice reform movement, knew wasn't the right way to go. That the evidence and data showed that there had to be a comprehensive way, that there had to be a fairer way, that there had to be, in short, a smarter way. And instead of shrinking the criminal justice system and looking for solutions outside of the criminal justice system, it seemed we were looking at enlarging the number of people that were justice involved. So to me, this shed a light on a couple things. It shed a light on the fact that progress, even if progress is rapid, needs to be sustained and intentionally sustained. And it also means that we have to get our message out, not only by words, not only by speeches, but also by actions. And so what we want to do here, a group of steering committee members wanted to do for this conference, was to show you, show each other, and show the public what is actually happening in communities across the country. What are those smart innovations? What are those smart and fair and just and data-driven and comprehensive strategies that are working? So whether it's the pre-arrest diversion that's happening in Seattle or Albany, New York, whether it's the Addiction Policy Forum working on the opioid crisis, whether it's fair chance hiring practices by Dave's Killer Bread Foundation or Greyston Bakery, companies like Uptrust or Last Mile Coding that use technology solutions to help justice-involved people, advocacy organizations like Color of Change and the Civil Rights Corps pursuing litigation, and also organizations that are giving voice to people who are justice-involved and survivors of crime and violence. These are innovations that people need to know about, and that's why we are here at this conference. Many of those types of activities have been supported by foundations and philanthropic organizations, and this conference is also supported by that as well. So I want to thank the people and the foundations who've made this possible. There have been a number of organizations that have helped us with resources and support. And so I just want to take a moment, if you could just please give a round of applause to these organizations who made this conference possible. And I'm going to get dangerously close to making this an Oscar or Grammys acceptance speech because I'm going to thank some more people here. We want to thank these steering committee members. You'll see that these names on this list here are people who are titans in criminal justice reform and people who are busy, but they have come together to put this conference together, put their ideas and their names behind that. So I wanted you all to give a round of applause to this group of members of the steering committee as well. And finally, I want to get in your good graces. So I'm going to give you the Wi-Fi password as well. So the Wi-Fi network is John J Events, and the password is John J Events, all in lowercase. So you all, hopefully I earned some brownie points with you all there. Just a couple notes about this conference. There will always be something going on in this auditorium, except for during lunchtime. And then there are other 2 breakout rooms. There are at most 2 breakout rooms after these plenary sessions. So there's only 3 places that you will be able to go to, or that you will want to go to during this entire 2-day conference. And so that should be listed in your program as well. One final person that I want to thank, and this person needs no introduction, but we are going to give her as good of an introduction as possible. I worked with her at the Justice Department in the last administration. I worked for her at the Justice Department in the last administration. She is somebody that inspires. She's somebody that has energy. She's somebody that is the engine behind this conference. And I got to tell you that John Jay College is lucky to have her, especially for a position and a title, finally, that she deserves. It is my pleasure to introduce my friend, a mentor, and the president of John Jay College of Criminal Justice, KAROL Mason.
Good morning. And I'm not used to being able to see you. So I guess one of the perks of being the president, they told me, they said, right before you go out, we've got a stool for you. And I said, do I really need it? And they said, yes, so that they can see you. So good morning. And welcome to our Smart on Crime Innovations Conference, our first in a series of this work. And as Ed told you, this work actually began with the team of us, many of whom are in this room, before I even got this job. And so it was fortuitous that as we planned this conference, that I actually ended up with this job at John Jay, and so that we could have this event at John Jay. And so I am glad to welcome you to John Jay College of Criminal Justice, whose mission is educating for justice and developing fierce advocates for justice. And can you think of a better forum for them to experience than this? To learn about how you meld evidence, research, and practice out in the world to make a big positive difference in the world. So last week I was at Otisville Prison visiting our prison to college pipeline program. Notice that twist on a phrase? We all worried at one point about school to prison pipeline. This is a prison to school pipeline. And our students, and that's what I call them, our students at Otisville Prison were absolutely amazing. They asked the toughest questions. They're so eager and engaged. And one of the professors who teaches in the program said what was so remarkable about the teaching experience there is when you ask a question, every hand goes up. Everybody wants to participate in the conversation. Everyone wants to learn. And the thing that's unique about that is that we're not trying to help them get college degrees in prison. We're helping them position themselves so when they come out, they are college students just like everyone else and then earn their degrees. And we had many of them there who actually had earned their degrees through this program. So one of the things that one of the speakers at this conference said last week, she said, you know, John Jay College is really like a United Nations for justice issues. Think about that. And what that means is it's a safe place to have a conversation about difficult issues. It's a place where we can bring people together who have disparate views on things and talk about them and come to common solutions. But what's remarkable about this particular conference is that we all share the same goal, and that's justice and equity and fairness. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it's irrelevant in this conversation, irrelevant for this conference. What we share is a desire to find justice, to find equity, and to find fairness. And it's been an education for folks at my institution, some of them, to realize that you can have unlikely allies. And when you have unlikely allies, that equals power. That gives you a voice that has a special resonance out in the world. So the fact that all of us are here together, gathered here together today to learn about the things that are working in being smart on crime, that are working so that we can make investments, wise investments in things that are working, but not just things that are working, experiment with new things and figure out what are the new things that we can try out. And John Jay is a place where we research and develop that evidence and develop opportunities for people to demonstrate and pilot those things on the ground. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were approached, thinking about the fact that we are the UN of justice issues, a group of corrections officers from Michigan, the Corrections Officers Union from Michigan and SEIU, approached us, John Jay, about a convening to talk about how to improve prison conditions and jail conditions, and they wanted that conversation to include formerly incarcerated advocates and voices, and also the voices of the foundations who are moving to reduce our dependence on incarceration in this country. So we all came together here at John Jay and had some really difficult conversations, very difficult conversations, but at the end of the day, we came up with common ground on common things we wanted to test and pilot. And that's what we're here to do today. The group of researchers and professors here at John Jay provide a basis for us to understand what's working, what doesn't work, and that we hope guide our policies and investments for the future. And because of this pursuit of justice with different voices, again, it's got power. It's got power. And so I hope that you come away from the conversations today and tomorrow energized, because with all the difficult challenges in the world, the hurricanes, the fires, the earthquakes, we need something to feel good about. And this is an opportunity to feel good about something because you are making a difference. You are making a change in the world by being here, by being part of this conversation, by helping other communities understand what they can do to create a more fair and just world. So I look forward to the conversations that we will have the next few days. I look forward to you all leaving energized and passionate. Now, those of you who know me know I'm going to ask you to make a promise. How many of you are excited about being here? Okay. Now, how many of you all are going to leave here and go out into your communities and other communities and be a model for how we can be smart and just and fair? All the hands aren't going up? Right, yeah. So I need you all to promise that you all will continue to work with unlikely partners, work with your allies who may not agree with you on everything, but where you do agree, let's work hard, let's move forward. So enjoy the next few days and come away energized to make sure that we all have a reason to feel good about what we're doing for this country. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the Draper Richard Kaplan Foundation and co-host of the Smart on Crime Innovations Conference, Carter Stewart.
Thank you. Good morning. Let's do that one more time. Good morning. All right. So happy to be here. So honored to be part of this effort. On behalf of the Draper Richard Kaplan Foundation, want to welcome you. I want to thank you. And I want to add to what Carol said and challenge you. When Ed Chung and Carol Mason called me a few months ago to suggest that something like this be put together, I said absolutely yes, because I'd seen Smart on Crime in action. I worked for Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch, who implemented some amazing changes at the Department of Justice, and I saw that work. I saw the leadership in the state of Texas and the state of Ohio recognize the issue or the need for criminal justice reform and implement change. And it worked, reducing incarceration levels and improving public safety. So I immediately said yes, but I wanted to make sure that funders were represented at this conference. There are some longstanding foundations that have been in criminal justice reform for years, but there are others, and a growing number of foundations like DRK that want to be involved, but want to be better informed about how to make the best impact. So what I suggested to Ed and Carol, which they took me up on, was to make sure that we included foundations in this crowd. So it's not just advocates, it's not just policymakers, but we have foundations here to learn from these informed conversations about how we can make the best impact. And at the end of this conference, we're going to meet ourselves to compare notes and to strategize over how to be most impactful. So very honored to be here. I want to thank you for being here as well. As Carol mentioned, every time you open up the paper, there's a Category 1, Category 2, Category 3, wildfire, political paralysis, and the fact that you're here is crucial. And thank you for being here. Thank you for overcoming all of the obstacles and also taking time out from your schedules to be here. But lastly, I want to challenge you. I do want you, as Carol said, to leave this conference energized, but we need more than that. I challenge you to step outside of your comfort zone while you're at this conference. You probably have a lot of friends here. You probably have been to a lot of conferences like this, We need to make this different because of where we are in our country. We need to make this really count so that you not just leave here energized, you have actually an action item list that you will start implementing in the days and weeks after this. So I encourage you to meet new people, engage in difficult conversations in a respectful way, and learn and make that list for when you leave here. So again, it's an honor to be here, and I look forward to the next couple of days. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Darryl Atkinson, who is a true champion for criminal justice reform. He was the first Second Chance Fellow at the Department of Justice, and he is now co-directing Forward Justice in North Carolina. So please join me in welcoming Darryl.
Thank you, Carter. I want to, for that generous introduction, I want to thank John Jay, the Center for American Progress, Draper, Kaplan, and special thanks to KAROL Mason, my former boss at the Office of Justice Programs, and it seems like I'm still working for KAROL. She's working me both today and tomorrow, but it's all good. I didn't one day wake up and envision myself being a leader in the criminal justice reform movement. That kind of happened by life circumstances. In 1996, I was convicted of a first-time nonviolent drug crime, sentenced to 10 years in prison. I spent about 40 months in prison. I languished while I was there. I had no opportunity for post-secondary education, no opportunity for vocational education. I went in with a high school diploma. I came out with a high school diploma. State of Alabama wasn't nearly as progressive as many other states in offering post-secondary education opportunities. The last institution that I was released from, St. Clair Correctional Institution, was featured in the New York Times maybe about 4 or 5 months ago at being 175% over capacity. 60% of the population while I was there had life without parole. You would ask those young men how much time they had, and they would say all of it, because they were never coming home. And I left there and went and was released to my family, who provided me food, clothing, and shelter, where I didn't have those immediate Maslow'ian pressures pressing down upon me. And I could think, I could make a plan, I could think rationally. And even though they loved me and provided me with that system of support, they could not prepare me for the discrimination that I was going to face once I left their home. My driver's license was automatically suspended because of my drug crime. I was denied federal financial student aid when I was trying to go back to school. I was denied admittance into an undergrad institution and 5 different law schools, even though I had a competitive LSAT score and a high GPA. Nevertheless, I was able to overcome because of the culture that my family created. And I was able to hold on to that culture when I went outside those rooms and I faced all of that discrimination. And that culture was one of redemption, was one of second chances, was one of that you are a part of our family. You're not the sum total of one mistake. That isn't all who you are. Now imagine if we took that to scale, folks. Imagine if we took that kind of culture change to scale. One of the favorite quotes that I left my time at the Justice Department was one from Valerie Jarrett. She would say, culture change eats strategy for breakfast. So you're going to learn a lot about innovation from the beginning of the system in CIT and de-escalation from police to the back end of the system to creating opportunities for people with records. But let's not forget that these are people while we're learning about all our evidence-based risk assessments and all of the quantitative tools that we need to show that we're making a difference. At the crux of this is people. And just like I was part of a family, that those 2.2 million people that are incarcerated in our federal prisons and our state prisons, those are people. The other 4 or 5 million that are on supervised release, probation or parole, those are people. The other 75 million with criminal records, 1 in 3 adult Americans in this country, those are people. Those are people connected to families, their fathers, their mothers, they're someone's children. And we should welcome them back to our American family, just like my family welcomed me back, and create that culture, right, where they can know that they can make a difference, that they can contribute. We tried to initiate that culture change at OJP while I was there under Carol Mason's leadership. Me and a fellow colleague by the name of Brent Cohen, while I was there, we really pushed that OJP change the language that they use when they describe people who were involved in the justice system. And some might say, well, what would you have us call those folks, Darryl? I'm so glad you asked. Not convicts, not inmates, not ex-offender, terms that leave us frozen in amber, never to change. Terms that describe our conduct, not describe us as people. So Carol sent out a policy memo to all of the OJP components that they were to scrub their websites, change their grant solicitations, change their public-facing documents to take away pejorative language, to take away language that the formerly incarcerated community. And I want to bring a person into the room that passed away a couple of years ago, Mr. Eddie Ellis, a formerly incarcerated man, him and Divine Pryor, who lead New Leadership Urban Institute. They really began this movement around changing the language because they understood that culture has to change. We just can't tinker around the edges with transactional change. We need a deeper transformational change. So we brought that to OJP, and Carol pulled out this policy. And remarkable enough, some academics came and studied it. Sean Bushway, a noted criminologist at Albany University, came and studied the effects of the policy. And you know what? You can measure culture, y'all. You can measure culture change. And he found that the policy change resulted in a less stigmatizing signal for people who had been convicted of violent crimes. Not nonviolent crimes, but violent crimes. Some of the most marginalized groups in our society. So I would implore to you, while you're learning about the latest innovation in risk assessment, while you're learning about indigent defense reform or bail reform or the latest litigation tactics, right, that we're using to help make Smart on Crime a reality in this country, remember the culture. Remember the people, that there are people attached to each one of those numbers. And those people are members of our community, members of our American family, that we should be welcoming back and encouraging them to be positive members of our society. Because we know we need them. We need them to be contributors. We need them to help build our tax base. And we just need them because they're part of our greater American family. Thank you for your time.
I now have the pleasure of introducing my boss to you. She is a leader in the progressive movement. She is the president and CEO of the Center for American Progress and the Center for American Progress Action Fund. Please welcome Mira Tandon.
Good morning, everyone. A little louder? This is going to be a fantastic day, and I really want us to get started. So I'm just going to be very brief. I want to thank our partners at the John Jay College Steering Committee, Draper Richard Kaplan Foundation, and with every organization that's offered generous support. I also want to thank the CAP team led by Ed Chung and our fabulous events group. The reason why we're involved in this issue is because we recognize that ensuring that our criminal justice system does not drive up inequality, as it has done year after year, decade after decade, is a key progressive challenge. But also, we recognize that we live in a moment where we're often divided against each other. One group pitted against another. And in criminal justice reform over the last several years, there's been a shift For decades, issues like policing and safety were pitted against the civil rights of our citizens. A terrible, divisive construct that hurt our communities, hurt our citizens, and ultimately, we believe, kept us less safe. We see this issue as an area in which we can actually build against those divisions, as we see throughout our country forces that continue to drive those divisions. So that's why we think this conference and this work is so critical. In this moment where many try to pit police against their communities, we have to stand against that. There are innovative practices around the country that are actually creating real results for people, where the issue of safety and civil liberties go hand in hand. That's why I'm excited about the ideas that will come from this conference, the ideas that are born of data and evidence. I know, crazy ideas, but still relevant today. We believe we cannot simply arrest our way to safe neighborhoods. That's a terrible strategy that has hurt not thousands or hundreds of thousands, but millions of people. And we are at a moment where there is a possibility of bipartisan reform. We've been working on clean state legislation in Pennsylvania, and there are ideas on both sides of the aisle, led by leaders like Kamala Harris and even Rand Paul, who I disagree with on many issues, but has stood up on some of these. These issues are tougher today than they were a year ago or 2 years ago, because we do have forces that are trying to rekindle those old divisions between security and civil liberties and civil rights. But that's why we have to do more than we've done before. That's why we have to engage more. That's why we have to show the model that actually works to protect our communities, which is one in which we do not sacrifice civil liberties and civil rights for security. I'm also just really pleased to announce that the person you just heard from, Darryl Atkinson, will be a new senior fellow at CAP. He's not quitting his day job, but there are few who know the criminal justice system better than he does. So I think we'll recognize, we'll be able to do more in this space. Oh, good. Oh, yeah. I was kind of hoping for an applause. Thank you. I am excited about the next 2 days, and I'm excited to hear the ideas that come from this, and also the ideas that you all have to ensure that our system works better, and that our country works better, and that our communities work better, to ensure that each of us are safe, but that none of us are sacrificed in that safety. Thank you so much, and I enjoy the conference.
In the past several decades, the United States has let one word dominate its approach to reducing crime: tough. The theory was more arrests, longer prison sentences, less crime. So did it work? Today, the United States has by far the highest incarceration rate in the world. The disparity is so pronounced that 32 states and the District of Columbia imprison more of their populations than any other country in the world. An astounding 1 in 3 Americans have an arrest record. But are we safer? According to the National Research Council, there is only weak evidence that increased prison populations from the 1970s to the 2000s led to large aggregate reductions in crime rates. In fact, a recent analysis showed that the crime rate fell more in the 10 states with the lowest prison populations compared to the 10 states with the highest. So what's the answer? Instead of being tough on crime, let's be smart. Being smart on crime means using data and evidence to make criminal justice policies instead of relying on assumptions or gut feelings. It means making sure our responses to crime are just and proportional. Smart on crime requires a comprehensive approach, using the whole toolbox instead of just the hammer. And it means we have to change our laws and the way we enforce them so that they are fair for everyone, regardless of race, gender, and socioeconomic status. A smart on crime approach will save money, make us safer, and save millions of people and their families from getting caught up in a broken system. More and more communities across the country are embracing this approach to criminal justice and public safety. It's not about being tough or soft on crime. We must be smart on crime.